Well, Crimea River is my response.
Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for Ms. Tyus, who's the committee chair, to join us. Give us a few minutes.
How are you?
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming promptly. I'm not getting my camera going. Whoa, what's that? I'm going to log out and come back because my camera's not working. Ay, ay, ay. I'll be back.
Is this community board number 8 meeting?
Yes, it is. This is the land use committee meeting. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Change camera. Let's see what's going on.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Irsa Weatherspoon, one of the vice chairs of Community Board 8. And we just have a series of numbers that we need to identify. Can you tell me who you are at number 347677? Please unmute.
You have to press #6
Repeat
to
that.
unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes. What's your name, please?
Repeat that number. I didn't hear all of the numbers.
It's well, there's a few of them. 347677.
That's some of my numbers, but that's not all of it. I don't.
Yeah, it only shows a it only shows a sampling of the numbers. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, my name is Patricia Oduba, and what's the other question?
No, I just wanted to know. I'm just trying to find out who are joining us this evening.
Okay.
Okay, Patricia, last name? I'm sorry.
Oduba.
Okay, thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, phone number 516366. Please unmute yourself. Hi. 3472 not 49.
3549, 262-3549.
Yes. And who am I speaking with?
Good evening. This is Jason
Good
Williams.
evening.
Good evening.
Hazel Williams.
Jason Williams,
Oh,
1326.
sorry. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Welcome.
I would hope
Welcome.
that Hazel wouldn't have a deep voice like this.
You never know. I don't want to assume, you know? All right. Thank you.
Exactly.
All right, sir. Thank you. And 516366. If you could unmute yourself. Number 917629.
917-653-9529.
Yes.
Oh, this is Kenneth Powell.
Kenneth Pyle. Thank you, Kenneth. Welcome. Thank you. Okay, and 646656. You can unmute yourself. Miss George, what is it? Star six?
Can you hear me?
#6 or *6.
Pound six.
Wait. Let me see.
Yeah.
*6.
Star six. Okay. Okay. So for number 516366, if you can do *6 to unmute, please identify yourself.
I pushed it.
Number 646656. If you can unmute yourself and identify.
The old title bomb.
First name, sir. Title bomb. What's the first name?
Yoel, Y-O-E-L.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome. Okay. And phone number 718382. Please *6 to unmute yourself.
I'm back. Okay.
Phone number 917677. If you could unmute yourself with *6.
Okay. All right. This is Ethel Tyus speaking, and I thank Vice Chair Weatherspoon for picking up on getting the meeting started. I'm hearing an echo. What is going on here?
Sorry. 1320 Dean just joined.
Your number is 52?
Number, no, 1320 Dean.
What
Dean Street.
okay, are you using a phone number?
Yes.
Okay, what can you give me the last two digits of the number?
No, 1452.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so this is Ethel Tyus speaking. I thank Ms. Weatherspoon for proceeding. And we don't want to lose any time because we're going to get a valuable presentation from City Council member, staff member Annie Levers on Council Speaker Johnson's proposal for planning together. So I would ask that we do a roll call and see if we have a quorum yet. But even if we don't, we can proceed with the presentation by Ms. Levers because I don't believe it has to be a voting item this evening. Ms. Weatherspoon, would you call the roll?
Sarah present?
Pardon?
Sarah, yeah, can you
Yeah,
you call the roll? Thank
sure
you.
thing. Okay, Princess Ben James. Okay, John Buckholz. Mr. Buckholz?
Sorry about that.
Okay, I thought I saw Mr. Buckholz earlier.
I'm here. Do you hear me or no?
Oh, now I can. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Sure, thank you. Robert Callahan? Janet Collins?
Present.
Thank you. Nora Daniel?
Here. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Miss Daniel. Yes,
Okay.
thank you. James Ellis? Kevin Farley?
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Farley. Najani Granville?
Here.
Hi, Ms.
Here.
Granville.
Hi.
Thank you. Kathy Islin?
Present.
Thank you. Zertima Jordan? I think I saw Miss Jordan
Present.
earlier. Oh, hello.
Present.
Yes, thank you. Peter Crashes?
Present.
Thank you. Sarah Lazar, yes. Sherry Norton? Fior Ortiz?
Present.
Okay, thank you. Robert Puka? Adam Sachs?
Present.
Thank you. Ethel Tyus?
Present.
Perfect. Thank you. Gib Viconi?
Here.
Thank you. Ursa Weatherspoon?
That's Irsa, and I'm here.
Yes, thank you. Sharon Wedderburn?
Here.
Thank you. Elaine Weinstein?
Here.
Thank you. Deborah Young?
She's excused.
Okay,
Excused,
thank you.
as is James Ellis. He wrote back excused for the March 11th meeting. So I think he picked the wrong email to respond to, but we'll straighten it out as we go along. Thank you for that. And we have, how many?
1 moment. 16.
Thank you. So we have a quorum. As I mentioned earlier, this is not a voting item. It's a presentation, first time on our agenda for this evening by Annie Levers of the City Council's Land Use Committee staff, I believe. Ms.
They finished taking attendance.
Excuse me, who's speaking?
This is Stacy Thompson. Did y'all finish taking attendance?
Yes, we did.
Okay, because my name or my number wasn't called.
Stacy Thompson, tell us,
Yes.
tell us about yourself. Are you a newly appointed member?
No, I'm just a block association member, and I'm from 1299 1303. Just sitting in just to hear what's going on.
1299 1303. What is that?
Block association,
Okay, for what block, ma'am?
Dean Street.
Thank you. Okay, is this your first time attending the
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we wouldn't have your name on the
Okay.
roster. Going forward, we'll take note of your information and let us have your email address and so on. And as we go along, after the third attendance in a row, we'll get you on the roster. Okay?
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Neal, we want to have Ms. Annie Levers make her presentation at this point. She's going to take 15 minutes, then we'll have a maximum of 10 minutes for question and answers after that. And then she's got to scoot off to another meeting.
Thank you so much, Ethel. And thank you everyone for having me here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay. Can you all see the presentation I pulled up?
Not yet. Okay, there we go.
Yeah? Okay, good. Let's see. View full screen. All right. So thank you again for having me here tonight. My name is Annie Levers. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director of the Council's Office of Strategic Initiatives. I work with the Land Use Division. I think Brian is here tonight as well. Our division spearheaded the Planning Together report and legislative proposal that I'll be presenting here tonight. So this is a bill that's been introduced in the council and we'll go through the legislative process. With limited time, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these key issues, but will instead direct you to the report, which goes into great detail on all of these, citing a lot of great resources and research. But in short, the city's planning mandates are insufficient. They're scattered and confusing. This leads to inefficiencies and a lack of coordination between city agencies. And our planning regime is purely reactionary. So there are very few meaningful opportunities for communities to proactively plan for their futures. Instead, we're left reacting to irresponsible development in our neighborhoods and individual rezoning proposals that are already fully baked by the time they get to the community board. And the city often does nothing to support the creation of proactive 197A plans, forcing community boards to sort of find the funds to pay a consultant and the cost of environmental review. And even where those plans are put together, the city often ignores them. So the city's piecemeal project by project approach to rezonings has really exacerbated inequality. The budget is rarely, if ever, connected to our policy and land use priorities in any meaningful way. And our budget decisions are almost entirely divorced from assessments of our capital needs, which are also totally insufficient. So in response to these issues, the council started working on a proposal for comprehensive planning under the direction of Speaker Johnson during the 2019 Charter Revision Commission. So the speaker was supportive of implementing comprehensive planning through that process. And when the commission did not take up the issue, we continued developing a version of the proposal that could be adopted by the council. So the proposal that I'll describe here today is designed specifically to center issues of equity, access to housing, and sustainability and resilience within the full range of policy, budget, and land use tools to better achieve our citywide and neighborhood goals. We have no timeline for passage in mind. Yes?
I'm sorry, Ms. Levers, to interrupt, but can you just slow down? I appreciate the interest of time, but
Sure.
Can you just slow down just a little bit?
Yes,
Could
of
you
course.
please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
I was just going to say that we have no timeline in mind for the bill passage. So we're really continuing to do meetings like these. I'm going out to many more community boards for the next several months and meeting with stakeholders, getting feedback, and we'll continue to do that through the next several months. The first thing to note is that comprehensive planning is extremely common. So New York City is an outlier. Every other major city in the country engages in some form of comprehensive planning. But for decades, New York City has repeatedly abandoned attempts to require comprehensive planning in favor of our ad hoc approach, despite the fact that comprehensive planning is a best practice and it's widely accepted to be the sort of best way to combat the climate crisis. So some might argue that the way we do things now, just muddling through one project and neighborhood at a time works just fine. And while that approach may have gotten us through the last century, a piecemeal approach to combating the climate crisis is going to be a disaster if we continue on with this sort of piecemeal approach to dealing with the fact that by 2100, a lot of our coastal neighborhoods are going to be underwater every day at high tide. So our housing and homelessness crisis is only going to get worse with climate change. 80% of our housing units that are in the current floodplain are affordable housing, and 28% of those units are NYCHA units. And even in the shorter term, unemployment rates are through the roof. Small businesses are suffering, but we really have no clear path to create more accessible, high quality jobs for New Yorkers. And we have this backlog of capital needs that grows by billions and billions of dollars every year, yet we have no real rational or equitable system for prioritizing what infrastructure needs to get built and where. So before I go any further, I just want to spend 1 minute clearing up some facts about what the proposal does and does not do in response to some misinformation that's spreading about the bill. So the bill does not make nor require any amendments or changes to the city's zoning resolution whatsoever. It does not require or trigger any requirements for any kinds of rezonings, let alone upzonings, and it does not amend or eliminate community boards' role in future rezoning processes, all of which would remain subject to ULURP. What it does do is it requires the city to provide community boards and the public with new resources, data, and analyses to support proactive community-based planning at the citywide level, so giving all neighborhoods the opportunity to proactively plan. It encourages the city to direct new growth and development away from low-lying areas that are vulnerable to sea level rise and other displacement risks like rising rents and real estate speculation. And it identifies and prioritizes communities' budget needs in our budget process, regardless of whether or not those neighborhoods are going to be rezoned. So it really does give all neighborhoods the opportunity to proactively plan for their future and preserve what they love about their neighborhoods. The comprehensive planning framework is designed to be a shared, proactive vision for the city's future across community stakeholders, city agencies, elected officials, and the New Yorkers those elected officials represent. So the comprehensive plan itself would be informed by all these various inputs: principles of equity and justice, climate and displacement risk analyses facing our city as a whole, and especially for the neighborhoods already bearing the burdens of climate change, community input to lift up and preserve and enhance what communities love about their neighborhoods and prioritize their vision for change, all while meeting citywide goals. So measurable targets for housing, jobs, open space, resiliency infrastructure, arts and culture, public health, all the good stuff we need to fit in our city in order to support thriving neighborhoods over the next 20 years. A robust physical needs assessment would inform those citywide goals, examining really for the first time ever all of the city's existing infrastructure and repair needs and the urgency of those repair needs across neighborhoods, identifying serious disparities. Neighborhood history, including an examination of the actual impact of recent rezoning decisions on the ground to assess whether or not the city's development decisions are really achieving their intended long-term policy goals. And then last but not least, neighborhood needs. What are the budget needs of our communities as they stand right now, regardless of whether or not we expect those neighborhoods to grow or change, so that we can prioritize those in the budget process first and foremost. So these are all standard and common features that comprehensive plans all around the world use to inform their process and that we've explicitly built into the legislation. So the framework streamlines and meaningfully connects the dozens of reports and plans and documents that are already required by the city charter, often without any opportunity for public input at all, while creating new resources for communities to use as they proactively plan. So all the documents that you see on the left side of the screen here, they already exist and they are produced by the city without any opportunity for public input. And together they could be like a comprehensive plan of some kind, but the charter doesn't make clear how they're supposed to relate to one another. And then on the right, you'll see the depiction of the news cycle, which would connect all of these disjointed documents and reports and build one vision, one citywide framework and vision for the city. So it starts with community boards' district need statements, which the charter will now make clear should directly inform the city's budget documents. The DNS would inform the production of the new conditions of the city report, which would feed into the citywide policies and goals. That would inform the city's long-term plan, and then ultimately that would inform the budget. So each document would build on the last. And the charter will also require new milestones for public input and engagement before and after the production of each of these documents. So the framework is designed to create clear opportunities for neighborhoods and communities to proactively plan. So the bill provides sort of an outline of what will become the comprehensive plan's public engagement process. It's designed to lay a solid foundation for good proactive community-based planning work to get done by setting a clear timeline and milestones and well-defined roles for each of the stakeholders you see on this slide that could be built on and adapted over time. So community boards and borough presidents would play an ongoing role during this 10-year planning cycle and would adopt recommended land use scenarios, which would then come to the council for review and adoption, just as 197A plans do now. So these frameworks would essentially set the vision for what future land use applications would get measured against. The Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability would play a sort of coordinating role, wrangling together all the city agencies that work on planning issues in the city, and then a new long-term planning steering committee and borough steering committees would subsume sort of this existing steering committee that doesn't do very much right now to help set our citywide goals. And then finally, the CPC would play an ongoing role in their review and certification of ULURP applications, just like they do now. But now with this framework, they'd be required to measure those applications against what's in the long-term plan. So now I'll walk us through the process. We've tasked the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability to be responsible for coordinating across city agencies. The first task would be the production of this first of its kind conditions of the city report. And that would be produced in coordination with communities and city agencies. The report would take all of the data that currently sits across dozens of reports and plans in the open data portal and puts that into one easy to use place that would be produced once every 5 years. It would also require new analyses, including a physical needs assessment, which I mentioned already. That would be like this really detailed list of all of our infrastructure and budget needs down to the park pathways and road conditions. And it would also include 2 new indices that Seattle uses to measure access to opportunity and displacement risk. So then the city would work in partnership with communities and key stakeholders to determine the city's long-term needs for housing, jobs, open space, schools, and other critical infrastructure, and those would be measurable targets. Then through a robust public engagement process, New Yorkers would help decide where and how the city would distribute that critical infrastructure in their neighborhoods over the next 10 years, prioritizing new projected growth in areas with high access to opportunity and lower risk for displacement. So this is designed to direct development away from sort of places that are especially vulnerable to rising rents and speculation and sea level rise. Community boards and borough presidents would adopt preferred land use scenarios of each of their relevant community districts. Those would get sent to the council, which would be responsible for reconciling recommendations from various stakeholders and adopting a final preferred land use map for inclusion in the final long-term plan. Those would set the vision for our neighborhoods, and we would measure future rezoning actions against those plans. So ULURPs would still be, everything would be subject to ULURP. They would just be required to include this statement of alignment that describes how the action does or does not align with the plan. And community boards would still participate in the ULURP process as they do now, but with these new resources to inform their decision-making processes and recommendations to the council. So the production of the plan would take place over the course of 4 years, from the appointment of the steering committee to the production of the final long-term plan, with opportunities for public engagement every step of the way before and after the production of each of these documents, many of which are already produced by the city. So we're sort of infusing new milestones for public engagement into that process. This depicts the full 10-year process, including when each document will be produced and the sort of update amendment process that would start halfway through the planning process. After the first cycle, the cycle starts over again. So each plan would build on the last, and it's really meant to be an ongoing conversation. Compliance with the long-term plan would be encouraged and considered, but not required. So all future rezoning actions in furtherance of the plan or not would still be subject to ULURP. Future ULURP applications would just be required to include this statement of alignment describing how the rezoning does or does not align with the long-term plan. And then community boards would entirely retain their role in that ULURP process with new data and resources to help inform their decisions. The proposal will also make significant reforms to our long-term infrastructure planning with respect to the city's budget to ensure we're spending our limited resources wisely. So unlike Plan YC or the One NYC reports, which set these great long-term goals, but don't include any actual dollar signs or indication of how much it will cost the city to achieve those goals, this would require the final long-term plan to include detailed budget needs for meeting citywide and neighborhood-specific goals. The 10-year capital strategy would be reformed to reflect the full scope of our infrastructure needs, including all of the repairs in our current neighborhood under current conditions and all the new infrastructure we need to build in order to achieve citywide goals. And then annual budget documents would prioritize those needs based on more robust assessments of our infrastructure, creating more transparency and accountability. So we think this process holds a lot of opportunity for the city as a whole and individual neighborhoods, laying the foundation for better planning work to get done by meaningfully connecting the city's budget, land use, and strategic planning processes, creating these new resources, data, and analyses to support proactive community-based planning, identifying and prioritizing communities' urgent budget needs, regardless of whether or not those neighborhoods will be rezoned, requiring the city to regularly review and recommend updates to the city's zoning policy in response to the successes and failures and unintended consequences of the city's rezoning decisions. That's something that this city does not do at all, and it's a best practice that all cities everywhere do. Just a review of our zoning code to make sure that it's having the impact that we intended it to. And then finally, increasing and improving coordination across city agencies to better achieve citywide and neighborhood goals. So I'm a minute over, but that is my presentation, and now we can move on to questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Levers. I'm sure there are questions in the chat that I would ask Vice Chair Weatherspoon to curate.
Surely. We have a question from Mr. Callahan. Can you clarify whether this plan eliminates requirements for reports like the mayor's management report? The graphic that you presented seems to indicate that there's several disjointed reports would somehow be eliminated by this process. Can you clarify, please?
Yeah, of course. So
thank you.
The mayor's management report would not be eliminated under this proposal. What we would do is it requires the MMR to speak directly to what the goals of the long-term plan would be. So it just mostly requires these documents to speak to each other, each building on the last. In some cases, we're reducing the frequency with which certain reports that the city produces are required, like the 10-year capital strategy. For example, they produce once every 2 years. This would require them to do it in a much more useful way that would be more robust, but only once every 5 years. So in that way, we're streamlining processes to make sure that they sequence and speak to each other, but not removing any reporting requirements that people rely on for information.
Wonderful, thank you. At this moment, Chair Tyus, there are no more questions lodged.
Oh, well, that's surprising. I hope everyone got a chance to read the summary, the link that I circulated twice over the past couple of weeks, and to download the full report. We want to take advantage of this. I do want to point out.
We have a couple of questions. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know they all popped in as you started talking.
Okay, well, let me get mine in first.
Sure, sure.
All right.
Sure.
One new report will be conditions of the city report. Will be the first new milestone on the 10-year planning cycle. This is on page 40 of the proposal, and there is a item 5, a displacement risk index, which is going to put a lot of weight on every single one of our committees on this community board. So I want people to pay particular attention to that. In addition to that requirement for us to actually pitch in with this reconnoitering and pointing out what needs to be fixed and improved. And for the capital planning side, the city agencies will be sending out their experts to say where any particular capital item is in its useful life. Okay, is it at the end? Does it need to be replaced now? And I would be asking us to all look at whether we would have to have staff, our district manager, our community, a coordinator, go out with the city inspector to look at whatever it is that needs to go into the capital budget over a certain dollar amount. But we can pick these things apart and put them back together with our comments that'll be due by a deadline that Ms. Levers will tell us about. Okay, other people have questions.
Yes, I'm gonna, in this order, Sarah and Gibb. Sarah, please.
Sure, thank you. There are a couple things, but what I remember from my own reading up on this was that this this bill proposed that the Department of City Planning was going to give 3 options to neighborhoods, and then the neighborhoods would have to choose among the 3 options. And so I didn't hear that part of it and then sorry, and just my second question was I think I heard you say that neighborhoods don't have to comply with this plan, and I'm just like, maybe you could explain that.
Sure.
Thank you.
So the first question, so there are 3 land use scenarios that we're requiring the city to produce. The Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability would produce these in a draft long-term plan. It's a standard practice in comprehensive planning. It just sort of helps folks imagine different scenario plannings, whether you're prioritizing particular sustainability issues or open space, et cetera. So it's just ensures that the city will provide some technical expertise and land use planning expertise. However, community boards are not required to choose one of those 3. Those really are just resources. So the bill allows flexibility that you could draw up your own land use scenario. That could be completely from scratch based on some work you've already done, or it could, pull together particular aspects of what's been pulled together by the city, but the legislation does not bind you to choose any of those. You could adopt them fully from scratch, as could the council, and they would be in the position to actually adopt. And then in terms of the enforcement or what is bound to be required, in terms of ULURP applications, what we're doing is creating sort of this mechanism through which the CPC will be held accountable to deem applications either consistent or inconsistent with the final long-term plan. They'll have to explain themselves where they're certifying an application that is inconsistent. So they'll need to provide a rationale, and then that will inform all of our decisions moving forward. So it leaves flexibility for whatever it is, perhaps another Sandy or COVID, whatever, like the types of things that come up that can't be expected, for us to adjust our planning decisions. It doesn't lock us into any particular proposal. It just creates additional transparency requirements to inform our decisions. Whereas right now, some neighborhoods might have a 197A plan that they're using to measure ULURP applications against. Most do not. And so they're really just, relying on their expertise and, whoever is on the board to weigh in on that decision, rather than having like a plan that everyone weighs in on together. And so that's what this will provide.
Thank you. Gibb, before you speak, give me a moment. Ms. Levers, are you able to drop a link to share this presentation with us all?
Sure, I can send it after. I don't have a link, it's just a PDF. So is it okay if I send it via email after this?
Yeah, and we can always dispatch.
I can
Thank you so much.
pull it up again if people want to see a particular slide.
No, I think they probably, people want to at their leisure look it over, I'm thinking.
Great. Yes, I'll send it right after this.
Okay, thank you. Please, Gibb. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My question is, what happens after the community's plan becomes part of the comprehensive plan? Let's say, as you pointed out, the community has sort of developed its own its own plan, and that plan sort of gets adopted and it becomes part of the comprehensive plan. Since ULURP is still going on and we're not changing ULURP, presumably all of the aspects of the plan would be implemented through ULURP by the Department of City Planning. What if the Department of City Planning didn't want to implement certain parts of the community's plan? Would today the Department of City Planning effectively has some pretty broad discretion there. How would that play out in the future? Would they be required to do everything that has been adopted into the comprehensive plan, or only the pieces that they like?
So we're including a couple of mechanisms to incentivize the city to move ahead applications, especially citywide, but also individual ULURP applications that would advance the plan. The first is that we are requiring the city to produce a generic environmental impact statement on the plan's recommendations, which would get the hurdle out of the way for getting a lot of the stuff done that we've been saying needs to be done for decades to our zoning code citywide, but they've just never done the work to do it. And so this would just get a lot of that work out of the way in terms of how much money they're spending, but also just the hurdle of the process itself to incentivize them to actually move the application forward. And then in addition, we are moving any applications that come to the council that are consistent with the plan, that are deemed to be consistent. They would be subject to a council call-up vote rather than mandatorily sending it to a hearing and a vote. The council would call it up for review. So that would be a discretionary action on our part. So it would just create a slightly easier path for them to actually get the application moved forward while still leaving the council's ability to call up the application, make changes if necessary, or ultimately reject it if it's a really problematic proposal. So we're creating these incentives instead of these mandates. A mandate would require a referendum, so that would go on the ballot, and voters would have to sort of vote on that.
But Mike, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I heard an answer to my question though. That we've now got a comprehensive plan. There are pieces in it that are important to the community, but what if we can't get the Department of City Planning to move forward with them in ULURP?
I mean, I guess my answer is that we are creating several incentives to get them to implement the recommendations, but there is nothing in this proposal that would force their hand to actually implement the recommendations in one of them.
Okay, that's for me that's a realistic scenario.
My phone just dropped off. All of a sudden, my phone just dropped off.
Could you mute your microphone, please, whoever that is speaking? Okay, thank you both, Ms. Reiser and Mr. Bocconi and Ms. Levers. We do want to point out that there has been one hearing on this item already before the City Council. And from what I'm reading, DCP had a lot of comments that are along the line of, wow, what are we doing here? So, and more along the line of, this is a radical change that may not work. So the story's not over. Ms. Levis, could you just give us a brief summary of how this is going to move forward? And then we'll thank you very much for your presentation so far and look forward to you sending me a link to your presentation.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, we had a hearing. DCP came and strongly opposed changing the way they do things now in really any shape or form. And that is, not unexpected. They were also opposed to implementing some form of comprehensive planning through the Charter Revision Commission. So we were not surprised by that opposition, but we are continuing to move forward because we think this is a really important conversation to be had. So over the next several months, I'll continue coming to community boards. We are working with several coalitions that are making suggested amendments to strengthen the bill and make some changes. So I'm still continuing to soak all of that in. And, community boards in particular are sending feedback in many different forms. So that could be a formal resolution. It could be a continued conversation. I could come here again. It could be emails, phone calls, but I'm keeping track of all of that. And I would say that, in the next 2 to 3 months, I think if we get some concrete feedback, that'd be very, very helpful for our process. And then we'll keep moving through the legislative process.
Thank you, Ms. Levers. Ms. Witherspoon, any more questions in the chat? I think I see a couple.
Yes, we do. We have a few. Yes, we have a couple. Ms. Levers, how will the long-term steering committee be chosen? Will it include CB members, community board members?
So the long-term planning steering committee will be composed of 13 members. 4 will be appointed by, as the legislation is drafted now. So we welcome your feedback on the appointment structure and its comprisal. But right now, 4 are appointed by the mayor, 4 are appointed by the speaker and speaker of the city council, and each borough president gets 1 appointee. So 5 borough president appointees. And that's the core long-term steering committee. But in addition to that long-term steering committee, which really is envisioned to be a very technical body that would help assess the city's, housing and infrastructure needs, our, CSO and water infrastructure needs, et cetera. It would also be required to form borough steering committees, which do not have a limited number. They are required to be more demographically diverse and reflect the diversity of the people who both live and work in the borough. So they would convene those. Right now, the legislation does not say exactly how those would be appointed, but we welcome your feedback. It very well could include community board members or chairs, but it's not, the legislation isn't specific about that. So that's another area where we're hearing a lot of feedback about sort of how that could work, how borough presidents could be more involved, how community boards could be more involved, and we would welcome that feedback as well.
Thank you. Also, will 197A plans continue to be merely advisory in spite of the time, money, and professional expertise involved?
Yes, unfortunately, they would be advisory, but what I believe this proposal would do is force the city's hand to provide a lot of the resources that are really that are very prohibitive for community boards to participate in that process through this conditions of the city report, by providing this land use expertise, by doing this physical needs assessment of all of our infrastructure. So it's really front loading a lot of the work that you would pay a consultant tens of thousands of dollars to produce in the form of an existing conditions report into an ongoing process where you could adopt plans on an ongoing basis that would then be actually incorporated into the ULURP process through this statement of alignment, which would give more teeth for implementation. So you would really have the CPC having to explain themselves if they're going to certify an application that conflicts with the plan, and that could be waved around and used as a method to actually reject the application or move it forward in a more smooth fashion if it's something that you all support. So the idea here is that, like, the thing that's missing with 197As, I think, is that, they could just be completely ignored by the city and a rezoning action could take place without consideration of what was in that plan. This will really formalize that process a little more. The sort of land use frameworks that you all adopt could very well look exactly like a 197A plan that you all have all produced, but it will be incorporated into this larger framework that will directly relate to our budget and infrastructure needs and our ULURP process in a way that 197A plans just aren't treated right now.
Thank you. Also, there's some curiosity on how you would characterize the discretion of the agency to make decisions that are opposed to the wishes of the community, but in the perceived best interests of the city at large. What is the redress of this community in opposition?
I would say that this is a proposal that tries to balance those needs, right? So we have a housing crisis, we have a climate crisis. These are things that really do need to be dealt with at a citywide level. Other types of infrastructure should be dealt with at a citywide level as well, right? Like transportation, water infrastructure, et cetera. And those things right now are just treated in sort of agency silos or one project at a time. And often come up against a lot of community opposition, a lot of the time for good reason, because communities are sort of, they feel as though they're being chosen for no good reason, right? So there's no real rationale for sort of where and how the city is distributing critical infrastructure or making their decisions about rezonings. This will require the city to create a rationale that's really rooted in this analysis that Seattle has used very successfully. They're one of the fastest growing cities in the country, and they use this displacement risk index and this access to opportunity index to really make very clear what the infrastructure needs are in a given neighborhood in order to increase everyone's access to opportunity, regardless of whether or not it's going to grow or change. And then where are the areas that are the least vulnerable to displacement, and how can we increase access to housing in those neighborhoods? And while there still will be, difficult conversations to be had in neighborhoods, I think working with a set of objective understanding of what our challenges are and what our district needs are will produce a much more productive conversation. I think right now there's a feeling as though the city has a plan in their back pocket and they're coming into communities saying like, what do you want? Anything you want is the world is your oyster, but then they know what they're going to do. And this really just flips the script. We will be provided with a proactive opportunity to weigh in on plans at the front end in a way that I believe will help resolve a lot of the conflicts we see on issue and project specific ULURP applications or infrastructure decisions moving forward.
Thank you so much. Chair Tyus, that is the end of questioning at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Weatherspoon. And I really appreciate you coming in on this, and we may need to invite you back again once we take a closer look at this and want to drill down on how we can tailor this proposal to really make a difference in how the city plans, because this particular community district is very well served by transportation and has a high risk for displacement. So we've got a target on our backs, and we want to make sure that there's opportunity for us to deal with this. Thank you again. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. And we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is the application to LPC from 1323 Dean Street in the Crown Heights North Historic District. Is there a representative on the line for this project?
Yes, there is. My name is Yao Guo. I'm representing 1323 Dean Street.
Are you ready to make your presentation?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we want to get your presentation up on the screen and you'll walk us through it.
Sure,
and then there'll be a question and answer session after you complete your screen sharing.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
So last month we were here for this proposed addition and a restore front facade to 1323 Dean Street. What the project is really about is a existing SRO. The owner wants to turn into a four apartment units, one unit on each floor, with a proposed extension at the back, and to restore the existing front elevations, and restoring the balcony. This is the location of the site is located on Dean Street in the Crown Heights North District sections. This is illustrate the where the location is. This is the existing facade. This is the old historical photo of the 1323 Dean Street. Our post work is to add in a bulkhead to the rooftop, and also a two-story extension in the back, and restore the front, and propose a staircase in the front to the cellar floor. This just shows you a location of this building is. This shows the existing conditions, what it's now. We want to restore the front entranceway, the stoop, the lower portion of the facade, and also the siding. We're going to remove the siding and restore to the back wood planks. This illustrates the rear facade, what it is now. Is the siding that we want to, when we do the back facade, and also a two-story extension in the back. This is an axiometric of the what's now and what's being proposed. What you see in the red is the proposed area. This is a sight line of the area with the proposed bulkhead and railing on the rooftop is not visible from the street. This is an overall site plan of what's now and what's being proposed. This is the existing condition of the what's there now is a 4-story. It's about 20 by 40 feet building, and this is the proposed area with the extension in the back, and also a ramp and a stair in the front. This is just a blow-up enlargement of the enlargement in the rear. It's about 16 feet in the back that is being proposed, and it still leaves about 31 feet rear yard requirement. Just a wall section of detail, and this is what we're proposing. What we want to do in the front to restore the stoop, install a handicap ramp, and also a stair going down to the cellar floor. There's a section of what's now and what's being proposed. This is what we want to restore to. On your left is the tax map of the photo of what 1323 looks like. And this is a photo of what 1315 is, a house that restored it. That is a few houses back, down the block from us. And this is an illustration of what we want to propose. It shows the existing front elevation and what's the what we're proposing for the new elevation. This is a color scheme of the front elevation and what the existing, what the base of the siding is. That's what we want to restore it back to. And this is a proposal of the rear elevation. On the left is the existing condition. On the right is the proposed elevation. It's a color scheme and an axiometric of what's being proposed. It's a color scheme of what we're proposing for the siding and the panels in the back. Yeah, this is all. This is the presentation. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gao.
Thank you.
I'm looking for questions in the chat, but just before we go to that, I want to be clear that we're not seeing where the porch will be replaced, and I don't see a ramp that you mentioned in the front. That's not there.
This is the sketch what we're proposing. On the left, there's a ramp that goes down because there's a 2 steps difference.
Ramp goes down. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Weatherspoon, questions?
Yes. Are there other rear extensions elsewhere on the block?
No, there's not. Ours is the first one. Yes.
Okay. Are you proposing a roof deck?
No, we're not doing a roof deck. The bulkhead is strictly for code requirements. The stay had to be terminated at the roof. There's no roof deck being proposed.
Okay. How many feet does the stairway, excuse me, down to the cellar level extend behind the rear addition?
That is, about the stairway is about 14 feet.
Stairway is 14 feet.
Yes.
Okay. What is being proposed for the top of the roof? I think you just answered. You said it's just a code.
Yeah. There's no roof deck. Yeah. There's no roof deck being proposed on the rooftop.
Okay. Your ramp is on the section, but it's not on the elevation.
Okay. This is the a section of it. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see.
And also the rails shown on the section should be shown on the elevation. So that's also not consistent.
Yes, is it? This on this diagram shows on the ramp on the left. On the second diagram shows the ramp that goes down to the cellar floor, and also a stair that goes down to the cellar floor. Yes, we don't.
Okay. At last month's meeting, there was a neighbor who mentioned that there at our last meeting there wasn't a neighbor that was pretty upset that said that what's going on with this building that you're working on has some serious structural issues that damaged other neighboring building. So
Well,
what do we have to say about that?
This is an SRO, or the tenant has been moved out. So at this stage, there is no one living in the building. We want to get some approval so we could move ahead with restoring the building.
Okay, but this person said that there was damages done to their property specifically. What's going to happen? What's going to happen with that? How do you mediate that problem?
I would guess that the owner of this building would need to communicate with the owner next door to see to have a conversation started to see what they could do to alleviate what the damages is. I'm not sure how to,
Okay, so there are other neighbors on the line. So I know that there are other people that are waiting, but I want to give them this opportunity to speak specifically to you and whoever's there with you in your presentation. Okay. So any of the neighbors, if you can just speak up, put your name in the chat box if you have some questions for this gentleman.
Hello, this is Horatia Trahan. I'm at 1307 Dean Street, and I still am not clear on what's going on top of the roof.
There's we are proposing a bulkhead, a stair that continue from the first floor to all the way to the rooftop, because that's a code requirement. We're not gonna install a roof deck on the rooftop. The roof bulkhead is just strictly for code requirement and access.
It's for what again?
For code requirement and access.
I'm not understanding that what you're saying.
It is strictly for access to the roof.
Okay, but
I,
that will be new. All the
correct,
other buildings don't have that.
correct. It doesn't have, right now there's a ladder that goes up from the top floor to the rooftop.
Okay.
What we want to do is propose it.
And
The
will that
code,
be in the back of the building versus, or in the front along the edifice? Will we be able to see it from the street?
no.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Mr. Gao, what is the height of the roof bulkhead?
The roof bulkhead is only going to be 8 feet, just to enough to clear the code requirement for the clearance for the stairs. It's going to be 8 feet. Yeah.
Thank you. That wasn't clearly shown on your drawings. Thank you.
Yes. Well, we got some comment from Ms. Young, so we're gonna that was one of the questions that she has about the height of the bulkhead. Yes.
Do you want to speak to any of the other comments from Ms. Young's group, or Ms. Weatherspoon? Do you want to speak to that?
Well, I just really want to read the letter of the concern from Crown Heights North Association. I believe you've received that, but I just really want the listeners to hear it in its entirety. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we've addressed you, Mr. Gao. Although you have not reached out to the Crown Heights North Association as instructed by CB8, we have reviewed your proposed plans for 1323 Dean Street located within the Crown Heights North Historic District. Please see our response to your plans. Now, I do know there's an update to that you did respond. So I just want to put that out there. So
I'm so sorry to chime in. I know you're reading a proposed letter, but I happen to be a neighbor on Dean, and I just want to have one more question. Is this like the final?
Okay, hold on a second. Wait. Hold on a second. Let me finish the letter, and as soon as I'm done, then you can speak. This is not long. So we have the concerns is the applicant planning to restore the front porch? Will the roof be used for recreational purposes? And I know that you spoke where that is concerned. In one illustration, the sight line from the street does not show the proposed bulkhead as being visible, but none of the drawings give the height of the proposed rooftop bulkhead. What is the proposed height? Mr. Gao?
Yeah. Yes, it's 8 feet.
8 feet.
8 feet.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we just want to just run through the recommendations. The brick foundation should be restored, not covered with plasters, stucco, and definitely not in gray. The bulkhead is too tall and should be sloped or reduced. The cladding on the rear yard addition is inappropriate in both material, the metal panel, and the color gray. It is preferred that you explore something more in keeping with the age of the house, which is 1875, and other cladding materials found in Crown Heights North Historic District. While we understand your interest in expanding this building as much as possible within the footprint from 2 to 4 units, making this relatively small house into 2 apartments without large additions, roof decks, etc., would be a much better use of the building. The drawings, presentations should include the distance from the end of the proposed rear extension to the lot line. And our oppositions are that we do not support excavating the front yard to construct a stairwell to the cellar with a door/egress. The proposed rear extension is too large. For this segment of the donut hole backyards of the 8 similarly sized buildings in the historic district, 1323 would be the only building with a multi-story addition. China's position is that this proposal has potential and our support is contingent upon receipt of acceptable responses to the above issues. Yours truly, Deborah Young, Chair and President of China.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, we got the letter today, so we're working on it. Maybe in the next coming weeks that we could have a conversation with her and change the make changes to the recommendations.
Thank you. Now the neighbor that wanted to speak, what's your name?
Hi. Hi, my name is Teresa Lallemand.
Oh, please speak. Thank you. Thanks for your
Yeah,
patience.
no problem. So I just wanted to ask Ms. In regard to the building, has this already gone through landmarks? And the only reason I ask is I'm worried about the loss of congruency along the front of the building, particularly in the front. Particularly, namely the ramp, in terms of, you know, it basically, it just kind of loses the congruency of the building and the historical appeal. Has this already been through landmarks and approved?
No, it haven't. This is the first step of going to the process of landmark district approval. This is the second time we're coming to community board aid, and no, you haven't been to landmarks. No.
And is the ultimate part to accommodate, obviously, individuals of wheelchair, or on the back portion, on the back, what is it, renditions of the building? It seems as though you excavated down to accommodate a livable space in the basement. Is that like true intention?
I'm sorry. Who's speaking?
Teresa Lallemand.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. The ramp is to accommodate accessibility to the parlor floor, and yes, we are doing a extension in the back, but we are only doing the excavation for the cellar, basement, and first floor. That is about 16 feet into the rear yard.
Right, I understand the extension. I guess my question was, one of your renditions to the rear facade,
Yeah.
it shows an extra door at beneath the building, which means it would be just like livable space. So I just didn't understand if the ramp was truly something that you had to create in order to make that a livable space, or
no, that the backyard step was to give direct access from the basement floor to the rear yard. That is not for a living space, though.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Bell.
you. Thank
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I just need some clarification here. The cellar versus a basement, because the terms are being used interchangeably depending on who's speaking. So not that it's a really big deal, but in general, cellars do not have any windows and they're not permitted living spaces or sleeping spaces. Just to be clear, Mr. Wow, can you address that, please?
Yes. The cellar, there is a cellar which is for storage and utility, and only it's not for living space. Then we have a first floor, a basement floor, which is like about 2 steps down, maybe 10 inches down from the street level. That is being proposed as a living space.
Thank you.
Okay, Charles and Nina, just if you could just be a little bit more patient with me, because it looks like your questions are just a little bit more involved. So I'm just gonna just ask 2 people to speak before you. So just if you could just give us a little bit more patience. So I'm gonna ask Fiore's question. What are the plans for the stoop restoration? Currently, the landing has concrete on each side. Will the original railings be restored from top to bottom?
Yes, there's the existing stoop is in a very bad shape, so we're gonna restore it to concrete, and also the railing we're gonna restore it to with the existing railing.
Okay. Who owns 1323 Dean Street?
Mr. Chen owns 1323.
Mr. Chang?
Yes.
You said? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Charles, please speak. Thank you. Thanks for waiting.
I have so many questions. I'm not exactly sure which question to ask. I guess did we ask how far that the rear addition stairway projects? Did we ask that already?
The we getting a lot of feedback about the where stairway that is leading from the cellar floor to the rear yard. I have raised that questions to the owner to maybe if we omit that stairway to if it helps, but that's also in the process that speaking to. I know that there's many comments regarding that stairway that is going up from the cellar to the backyard area.
I mean, when I did just a little addition, it was the 16 foot 8-inch addition plus another 14 feet of stairway.
Correct.
So that really becomes almost 31 feet of addition.
Yes, but also the stairway is underneath. You will not see it. But like you said, that there's many concerns about that stairway that I have brought up to the owner to see if they could maybe not do the stairway. That's which is an ongoing conversation.
I guess the stairway is a little bit of a distraction while the addition itself is what is so uncharacteristic of this particular block. So I don't want the focus to get moved from the addition to the stairway because both are really not in the character of the neighborhood and particularly the landmark block.
Correct. That's because we the first houses that is doing the two-story rear extension that was that requires landmarks and also community board hearings.
Charles, is that sufficient?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Nina, you're on.
I did send a photo. I don't know if anybody got that photo in the community board email that shows a structure on the roof. I don't know if that's available to share with the meeting, but that would be great.
Thank you. Sorry for that, Nina. Please proceed.
No problem. I still trying to understand how far this extension goes in the backyard. And I just really don't necessarily need the measurements. I need more like a proportion. Currently, that's open space that will be eliminated and had an impact on the quality of space, outdoor space for the neighbors next to this home, since we are going to be basically surrounded by brick walls on one side or another. So tell me, is from the current size of the backyard, are you using half of the backyard, 2/3 of the backyard, more or less, without the specific measurements?
Okay. So so right now the backyard is about 40 feet 6 inches of it's about 46 6 inches. We are proposing 16 feet 6 inches, which is probably maybe 1/3 of what the existing backyard is.
And you also, beyond that, it's also the stairway that will fall beyond
Correct.
that. And
Yes,
that would be
that
another
14 feet.
So that's about more or less 2/3 of the space.
Yes, but the stairway is it's on the ground level. It's not.
You're still taking ground space, and you're still taking green space away from the backyard.
Correct.
And therefore really leaving a smaller proportion of the backyard.
Yes.
And basically the whole kind of feel to the backyard will be really impacted by this big structure that is both protruding back and as well going up basically two floors, the ground floor, which is the basement floor, and another on another floor, extension of the parlor floor.
Yes, we are proposing the parlor floor and the basement floor.
Correct. So it's like a two-story extension that protrudes almost 2/3 beyond the backyard.
No.
And I mean, it's taking about that amount of space, including the stairway.
The actual proposal is the 1/3 is the actual building structure. I understand what you're saying, that is that if you add in the stairway in the back, but the stairway in the back is actually is in ground. I understand it's taking up great green space. That's also my concern, and also with a lot of comments, feedbacks about that stairs, that I have spoken to the owner about that. Yes. But if we take the stair out, we are actually building 1/3 over the green, the way yard, existing way yard is.
And you're also building a rooftop from the floor above the parlor floor.
That's
on
rooftop.
Over the extension.
Yeah, wow. That's the rooftop is inherited with a building structure. We are not providing a rooftop accessory on that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean rooftop. I meant there's outdoor space from the floor will be the floor above the parlor floor that actually creates a type of deck for the tenants on the third floor, will be third or second floor from. So you're building something out from the what would be sorry, the not the cellar floor, they would be the third floor. There would be
on the
outdoor deck.
Yes, on the second floor there will be a deck that is on the extensions. There will be a deck, yes.
I believe we're going to run out of time on this item. For the neighbors, can you put your names and your addresses, house numbers, and your emails in the chat to me?
Please do not do that. Oh my God, please do not do that.
I'm sorry, I wasn't finished. May I finish?
Oh my God.
Hello? May I finish? I said to me. Okay, so let's not cut each other off, okay? Thank you. So if the neighbors would let me know how to contact you and what your address is, so we can let you know about the process. Is that okay, Ms. Neal?
Please do not put any personally identifying information in this chat, in this forum, even if it is a private message. Please just send it directly to brooklyncb8 at gmail.com. It is for your own protection. I mean, come on. Come on. It's the digital era. It's stolen identities everywhere, every day.
Okay.
Please.
Hello, this is Janet Collins speaking.
Wait, hold on.
Been asked-
Wait. Hold on, Miss Collins. Hold on a second. Miss Tyus, are we continuing with the questions? Because we have questions that are not necessarily from neighbors. Are we continuing with the questions?
No, we're running out of time. We'll take one or two more, and that's going to have to be it because we have another item, 840 Atlantic Avenue, and then we have another one after that, 1034 Atlantic Avenue. So we're running out of time.
Okay, so Ms. Collins, you may proceed.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question about the image that was shown to us with people standing on the street, and you were showing the angle, the site angle
Yes.
towards the bulkhead, showing
Yes.
whether or not it could be seen.
Yes. Yes.
Show that. Okay. Yeah. Now, where are these people standing? Are they standing on the same side of the street or the other side?
They are standing across the street, directly across the street on the sidewalk from the furthest point.
And is that I don't know if this is relevant or not, but does it take in this drawing, this line here showing the angle, does that take into consideration the height of the people?
Yes.
So what are the height of
The average height is 6 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Madam Chairperson, may I make a comment?
Is that Mr. Puka? Who's speaking?
Yes, it was.
Please speak. Go ahead.
Okay, I have to agree with you that for the respect of everyone, it's 7:40. We have two more applications. Is it possible we can? I know you said we're running out of time, so could we please end this presentation? I'm just requesting because 840 Atlantic Avenue is going to take up a lot of time. We know that. Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson. And also, if we can just let all the people, all the neighbors that have questions, just to inform them that they need to show up. If they have these questions, they need to show up at the Landmark Commission meeting to ask these questions. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Puka. I know this sounds horrible, Mr. Guelph, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes.
I have the letter from the Crown Heights North Association. I would ask that you contact them, and if you want to generate support for your application, talk it over with your client and see what changes can be made so that this goes through smoothly. Would you be willing to return? These are the kinds of things you want to discuss with your client and then with the Crown Heights North Association, because there are more steps to the process, as Mr. Puka just pointed out.
Yes.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Presentation. We're going to move on to the next item on our agenda for this evening, which is the 840 Atlantic Avenue.
Ms. Tice, just 1 second. I just wanted to verify, do you have a hearing date, Mr. Gao?
For landmarks?
Yes.
No, we don't yet. Not yet.
Okay. And I just want to ask really quickly that you provide the owner's information to Community Board 8 for those, those neighbors who are experiencing problems and damages with their property. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Tias.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Weatherspoon. Moving right along, we've got an application to 840 Atlantic Avenue to step up from M1 to a higher zoning designation to develop the site into an 18-story residential, commercial, and community facility. We've seen this once, and I hope they've made some changes that were brought up at the last meeting. And we'll go forward with that. Please, who's here for 840 Atlantic Avenue?
Hello, Stephanie Marazzi and Benjamin Stark. We represent the developer on this project.
Do you have a presentation you want to show?
Yes, so we will share that.
Okay. And if you would put your names in the chat, I'd appreciate it.
You're sharing the right
Am I sharing the right screen? Maybe not. Okay, this is the preview.
there, that one.
There we go. Okay.
Do you
Okay,
see-
great.
Do you see
That
our
should work now.
presentation? They want us to put our names in the chat. Go to the chat.
Not sure.
We can't type in the comment box while we're screen sharing, it looks like.
Here we go.
Oh,
Here's the chat.
There it
Okay.
is.
Okay, great. Can everyone see the presentation?
It looks good. Please.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Hi again. My name is Ben Stark, as my colleague Stephanie Marazzi already said. We're land use attorneys at Hirsch and Singer and Epstein, a law firm from the city. And we represent the applicant for the application you're going to hear tonight, Vanderbilt Atlantic Holdings. And the application before you, I know some of you are already familiar with this. I guess first I'll say, like, we're really excited to be here tonight. We've presented this project a couple times to members of the community board, including the land use committee, and some other organizations in the neighborhood. And it's just a bit surreal for us that after so many years, we're here for, I guess it's kind of like the real thing. So once again, this is an application for a rezoning at 840 Atlantic Avenue on the southeast corner of Vanderbilt Avenue and Atlantic Avenue in Prospect Heights. This application, as Ms. Tyus already introduced, would take land that is currently zoned low density for just for manufacturing and certain commercial uses. That accommodate higher density development, including residential uses, as well as commercial and community facility uses. The application would also, as so many private applications do these days, would establish a mandatory inclusionary housing area over the project site. The application would also amend the zoning resolution to allow wider, more pedestrian-friendly sidewalks when the building is constructed. Just the first thing I'll say is this is the application that some of you are probably familiar with, in that it would facilitate the redevelopment of the well-known McDonald's drive-through on Atlantic Avenue. Next slide. Okay, so as some of you are familiar with, this application would facilitate, like Ty said, an 18-story building at approximately 8.8 FAR. The building would include approximately 316 dwelling units, and inside of that would be approximately 95 affordable housing units, approximately 30% of the building. The building would also include commercial and community facility uses on its first and second story. So before we go to the next slide, just like to see here so everyone can kind of get a sense of the scale of this proposal and its surrounding area context. Where we are, obviously we're on the south side of Atlantic. The notation is pointing to the proposed building. In the image here, you'll see both catty corner to the proposed building, 550 Vanderbilt, on the southwest corner of Vanderbilt and Pacific, and also across the street, because it's not quite done yet, so we don't have a pretty rendering, but this is we were able to pencil it in here, and yeah, the building's topped out at this point. Is 809 Atlantic Avenue on the north side of Atlantic. So these buildings kind of would anchor this particular corner. But let's bring it down to the pedestrian level to kind of position everyone where we are. This is probably a familiar sight to those of us with cars. We're right where Clinton Ave kind of dumps out onto Atlantic. The McDonald's site is on our left, Barclays Center in the distance. We're just kind of looking west down the 120-foot wide Atlantic Avenue. Next slide. We've kind of rolled around now to the other side. We're now on Vanderbilt. We're looking north. The McDonald's drive-through with some of its parking is to the right. Then we kind of just went north up Vanderbilt a little bit and looked back over our shoulders. We're now looking back towards the McDonald's drive-through site, 550 Vanderbilt. Existing building is on our right. If we could look left and onto the corner you just see on the left side, and that's where 809 Atlantic is. Next. Okay, so now we just took a couple steps forward just to get a better sense of the McDonald's site here. And yeah, okay. So what is it that we're trying to accomplish here? As we mentioned, oh, somebody's speaking. As we mentioned earlier, this site is currently zoned M11, a low density manufacturing district, and the primary purpose of the rezoning would be to facilitate a new building that is predominantly residential, because this location, to put it frankly, is a fantastic location for housing. The site in its surrounding area, it's really busy. There's an exceptionally high vehicular traffic volume at this location. Anybody who's been here in the middle of the day would probably agree with that. And interestingly, it's a really evolving pedestrian location as well. There is, as the new developments start to fill out, like 550 Vanderbilt, like the new building up on like 809 Atlantic, once people start to move in, like the new building up on Claremont, a lot more pedestrian traffic has started to traverse this area. The site is also well positioned for a significant component given its proximity to these streets. These streets at this location are exceptionally unique in the context of like the balance of Prospect Heights. We are adjacent not just to one very wide street in Atlantic Avenue, but we're adjacent to another wide street, 100-foot wide street in Vanderbilt Avenue. And collectively, these wide street conditions really ensure that a notable amount of light and air will reach the pedestrian realm and make it a much more pleasant place to traverse. So that's kind of like the physical condition, but also kind of on a more further flung, it's well positioned for housing given its proximity to multimodal public transit. Everyone obviously knows that the Atlantic Terminal is relatively close, but it's also about busing. It's about subways to the north at Clinton, Washington. So it's well positioned for a variety of different public transit options, as was mentioned actually in the city planning presentation earlier this evening. And finally, this location is well suited for a housing component, given like what I had said earlier, the existing and proposed context of buildings in close proximity. 809 Atlantic is a 300+ foot tall building. To the west, 550 Vanderbilt at over 200. And although it doesn't exist yet, and although we all have differing opinions about the process that it went through, to the west, immediately across Vanderbilt, will someday be a 300+ foot tall building, the easternmost building of the Pacific Park project. And it's for these reasons that, next slide, that the city's planners and urban designers, through the M-Crown study process that I know so many of you are not just familiar with, but are intimately engaged in. It's for these reasons that the city's planners and urban designers agreed that this site does offer a unique opportunity to do something different than what will eventually come about in the balance of the M-Crown. Next slide. obviously we have limited time here. I'm not the one to summarize what M-Crown is. There are people on this community board who know far more about it than I do. We follow it in the context of the projects we're working. And here, but I can say that as city planning shows on its M-Crown study framework, the corner of Vanderbilt and Atlantic receives unique treatment. And thank you, Stephanie, for pointing it out. For high density development with significant affordable housing. And one of the reasons that is that as much as Atlantic Avenue overall, as we move east in our looking at this particular framework chart, receives kind of the same treatment. We see that lighter shade of red moving east. Everyone probably would agree that Atlantic Avenue is not a monolith. What the existing condition is of Atlantic and the future condition of Atlantic on its western edge is not the same as what's going on its eastern edge. The eastern edge, just as we can see from this chart, there's a significant presence, a greater presence of industrial and semi-industrial uses, and that's part of Atlantic Avenue's future. Whereas this part of Atlantic on the western edge is appropriate for housing. I mean, that stretch of Atlantic is no less than half a mile. And again, the corner, as I mentioned, this is the only spot in the M-Crown receiving this treatment. And why is that? Something different belongs here, and that something different is more housing. So can we go to the next slide? Despite this me continually using this phrase, more housing, the proposal is contextual with what surrounds it and what is going to surround it. As this image shows, both 809 Atlantic and the future easternmost site of Pacific Park are notably larger buildings. They're over 100 feet taller. And this is likely why city planning saw this site, or partly why city planning saw this site as a unique opportunity, because from a contextual perspective, it's appropriate, or many people would feel it's appropriate to use this site as an interim step. And can we go to the next slide to kind of illustrate this? The unique designation that the corner of Atlantic and Vanderbilt has is calling for an interim step from the structures to the west to whatever follows moving Atlantic. And you can kind of see this dynamic from the magenta to the lighter shades of red. Next slide. But that's not the only urban design consideration going on here. The building itself already tries to anticipate the built context that will follow as we move east along Atlantic. The building positions most of its mass, or a large majority of its mass, on that corner of that 100+ foot wide Atlantic and 100+ foot wide Vanderbilt. It then does a number of steps moving east, anticipating the context of what will someday come to be. And that's not only on Atlantic, but it's also on Pacific as well. We don't want to have it be lost in the course of this presentation that the rezoning also that we're proposing also calls for rezoning a portion of Pacific Street from M1 to R6B. I'm not sure if my cursor here is in view, but you can kind of see on the Pacific Street portion of this building a notable step down in the building's mass to a building mass that would be compliant in that R6B townhouse. 51 feet?
Yeah,
Great.
51 feet in the R6B.
Great.
And then within 25 feet of the R6B, we're limited to 65 feet. So that's sort of an extra layer of buffer, and sort of locks in the step down condition through zoning that we then have to abide by law.
These steps in this building from 195 feet down, kind of at least the larger ones, not the R6B portion, they bottom out at about 110 feet, which provides a contextual step to the height context that's going to follow on Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt, moving south of this site, is R7A, permitting buildings of 80 to 90 feet tall, depending on whether there's qualifying ground floor and wonky stuff like that. But that kind of illustrates, you had 190 Step, 110 Pacific Street, 85. It provides that context of stepping down towards the lower density areas of Prospect. Next slide. That's not really all that's going on here. Again, we also are proposing a text amendment to the zoning resolution that would facilitate wider sidewalks. This is part of the overall vision for Atlantic Avenue, that as more and more pedestrian traffic starts to traverse this area, that it's appropriate to set these buildings back, giving more room for pedestrians, and not just to make it more pleasant, but it's also a safety issue. Like we talked about, Atlantic Avenue is really busy. Let's make sure that we give people enough space to walk down Atlantic away from that traffic. Right now, the Atlantic Avenue sidewalk is only 12 feet. With this text amendment, we'll be able to provide 20-foot wide sidewalks. We'll be required to provide 20-foot sidewalks. Next slide. We talked earlier about the non-residential uses in the building, or that there would be non-residential uses in the building on the ground and second stories. And one of the questions that in our community engagement sessions is just a question as to, like, well, you know, much of M Crown is calling for a mixture of residential uses with perhaps industrial uses, or other non-residential uses. And we've thought a lot about this question, and for all the reasons that this site is not great for an industrial user, you know, the super high vehicular traffic, the increase of pedestrian traffic, it makes it a great location for community facility uses. The vision here is that once built and once the pedestrian traffic starts to come up, that a community facility user on that ground and second floor will be able to draw pedestrians in, can really engage with the street. And really, as someone had mentioned in one of our sessions, this site is a gateway to the neighborhood as a whole, and so that's why we think it's a really appropriate location for like a real like benchmark foundational community facility use. So with that in mind, we are currently working with a local arts-based organization to make 840 Atlantic Avenue their long-term HQ. And this particular user programs classes and performances that are open to the public. So our team has always kind of had this image or vision in our heads of classes and performances open to the public in you know, big open windows on the second story. We've now widened the sidewalks. People can walk by, they can engage. So that's kind of the vision here as far as non-residential uses. That's generally it. We really hope that people can see the vision that we've put forward, and we're here and available to answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. I believe your project has hit the first milestone in the ULURP process. Am I correct?
This is it. You guys are first.
We were certified on Monday.
Congratulations for your hard work.
And thank you to the community board for scheduling us within 3 days of certification.
Well, a lot of neighbors for the project have some serious concerns, which I'm sure you'll hear this evening. So we want to look at the clock. It's 8 o'clock now, and we want to give people an opportunity to ask their questions, and then we are going to take a vote on whether we support your project as presented. I asked Ms. Weatherspoon to curate the questions in the chat, and I would ask you to please send me your contact information. If we were If we were in person, I'd be collecting your business cards as I used to do when we would meet face to face. So I appreciate it if you would send me, Ethel Tyus, your contact information with your firm names and so on. Okay.
Yeah, we will.
All right.
Okay.
Ms. Weatherspoon, you're going to do the questions?
Yes, I just want to remind everyone to be mindful of your length of exchange to give others the opportunity to pose their questions. So in this order, Peter, Sarah, Tom, Leslie, and Kathy.
All right.
Please proceed. Thank you.
Actually, I just had I have a question about the because I think the architect stated that they were upzoning. Sorry, they were changing M1 to R6B on the Pacific Street side, and I was asking what specific lots you're referring to there, because that looks like it is already zoned R6B.
Okay. There is a portion of the site that's already zoned R6B, but we're going to be rezoning more of it to R6B. So I'm just going to try and share. Let me see. I have a chart here. This sort of shows that beyond 125 feet of Vanderbilt will be zoned R6B, and right now only a portion of that is. So we're increasing the amount of the site that's within the R6B, and then as a result of that R6B mapping, the portion of our building within 25 feet of the R6B is also limited in height to something much less than it would be otherwise. So the R6B height is 51 feet. Within 25 feet of the R6B, we're limited to 65 feet in height. Can you see this tax map with the zoning district boundaries on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the okay, for the moment, that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Gib, jump on in.
Sure. I just wanted to point out this is not necessarily the community board's public hearing on this application. This application was just certified on Monday, and my understanding is our clock does not start until Wednesday of next week, after which point we have 60 days to take a vote. So I'm hoping that we can have more questions answered, but I'm fully expecting to make a motion to table this.
Okay. Thank Ms. Tyus.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Weatherspoon. We are gathering questions. This is a second opportunity to let Mr. Stark and Ms. Marazi know what it would take to get our support for their proposal. It'll take a lot, I'm sure, because the proposal is so high and dense, and we'll just set another marker and move that same rubric further east. Height and density, and the neighbors are concerned, and rightly so. So this is an opportunity. I'm surprised there are not a lot more questions in the chat. I do see a question.
There are other questions.
Okay.
There are other questions. If we can continue, if that's okay.
Please continue.
Okay.
Let me just say one thing now, that whatever happens going forward, we hope that the sponsors of this application will continue to offer the arts groups that are looking at having the support of a low or no cost space on the ground floor, that will remain, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tyus. Sorry, Sarah, for breaking the order. Did you have something to say that you wanted to bring to the attention of our presenters?
Oh, me?
Yeah,
Sarah
did you
Mazur?
have?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like a broken record, but I guess I always want to know more about the um, quote unquote affordability. And I also, I'm still thinking about how the intention for M Crown was for job creating uses on the ground floors of these buildings. And, um, I appreciate the arts a lot. Um, but I still don't know if this exactly fits in the uses that the community board had envisioned for this area. I guess that's all I would say for now. I mean, I'm also very relieved that we're not having the official hearing because this is all just, it's so much to take in at the moment. So, but thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Tom, did you have something you wanted to say? Tom?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sure. Please proceed.
I don't think I had a question, but if anybody has questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. All right. So let me just move down the line. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Leslie, and then Kathy after.
Okay, well, while Kathy, Leslie and Cassie are gathering their thoughts, could you put your, Mr. Stark or Ms. Marazzi, can you put your project number in the chat, please?
Project number?
Sure. I guess I'm a little confused. Could we perhaps respond to some of these questions? I know we're using this as a session to kind of get some questions out, but we're all here. Can we respond? Is that what people would like?
We are going through the questions, but there are a couple of people who have a few questions, so we're knocking it out in that kind of order. Okay. So there will be there. That's what we're doing now. Okay.
Hi, this is Leslie. I just wanted to mention
Leslie,
that I made a comment. It wasn't really a question, but just wondering why you categorize highly trafficked area as a great place to live.
Okay, I'm happy to. Yeah. The high traffic condition is one that it supports higher densities. A higher density building like this can serve as a bit of a sound buffer to the neighborhood to the south. Higher density also allows for more residential units to be on higher floors that offers sound buffering. It can be remarkable sometimes the difference in sound between being on a second story and being on, say, a sixth story. So at this particular location, a taller building is not going to feel that traffic noise like a lower building might. And as far as like sound dampening for properties to the south, it can be remarkable how a building wall like this can protect context, moving away from high noise generating use. So there are a lot of streets in the city that are wide and are high traffic like this, and that's why planners and designers will often call for larger buildings on streets like that.
And is it really the height that you're talking about that's necessary, or could it be a little lower?
We think that this location in Prospect Heights generally is the best location building of this mass. And I just kind of, I don't want to get away from this question, but I do want to kind of couple it together with the question I saw in the chat to clarify something. Somebody asked, well, why are you saying that this is not gonna be in conformance with M Crown? That's a misunderstanding. We think this building very much is in conformance with the building mass vision for M Crown. We think that this is the site that is to accommodate the most density, and that everything from here is less. That's what that what that study shows, and that was the intention of the urban designers, was to use this site as an interim step, and then whatever follows to the east will be another step lower than this.
Hi, this is Kathy. I think I was next on the question.
Yes, Kathy.
I just want to say, Ms. Tyus actually addressed the points that I have, which is that I don't think there's anything that can be said that if this building is granted whatever zoning it is, that it won't in fact ripple down east and affect the zoning for the other buildings. And also, you just mentioned the planner for this project. Are you referring to DCP when you talk about that? Your conversations with DCP when the planner thought this was the site that could handle this bulk? Thank you.
I would never say that any one planner made any decision, that the process by which the M-Crown study was undertaken and resulted in city planning's publication of that particular framework. It was collaborative between the community and the agency. And although there are members of the community who might disagree with that particular framework document that resulted, I still don't think I'm hearing from the community a disagreement that this particular location on the corner of Vanderbilt and Atlantic, two very wide streets adjacent to tall buildings, either existing or proposed, and much closer in proximity to public transit than any of the sites moving east, heck, many of the sites moving southeast, that this is the location that is most appropriate for a building of larger density. So I mean, we can all sit here and have our disagreements about what that actual density is, but I do think it's perhaps disingenuous to say that this site isn't deserving of a density beyond that of the balance of the M-Crown area. It has unique conditions that make it, from a land use perspective, the most appropriate location for the most density. So we can, like I said, debate the actual particulars, but
right. As you'll see in the chat, I think you'll find that there are community members and organizations that do disagree with the density of this building. So as you say, we all.
You cut off there for a second. What was that?
You said we all have differing opinions, but I don't think you can characterize the community as not having feelings, different feelings about the density of the building. That's all.
Oh, no. And again, I definitely want to jump in and clarify that. To clarify, I'm saying that just the dynamic of this site accommodating more density than sites to the east, I think perhaps people could see that that's appropriate. That it's again, we can all disagree, but just at least in the dynamic of when we look at the whole M-Crown area, where is the most density appropriate? This is the location, and that's what that M-Crown framework document shows.
Thank you very much. Also, next up is Jamel and Kate, and then Gib, and then Elaine. Please proceed.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Hi, my name is Jamel Gaines. I'm the artistic director of Jamel Gaines Creative Outlet. We are one of Brooklyn's premier arts organizations. We've been around for over 25 years with a dance theater that's been national and international touring and recognition and recognized. We have a young artist program which we train and mentor high school students and college students into the field of the arts and business administration as well. We have a school of approximately about 300 students. We are in arts and education in about 40 schools, doing everything from dance, theater, music, poetry, script writing, mask making, set design, staff development in all areas of the arts. We do summer programming with New York City Summer Youth Employment, and also summer programming in the community. What's really ideal for us, we are known for outsourcing artists and developing artists that have been on Broadway. All the Broadway shows that you guys go to and that you have seen on Broadway currently, obviously not during COVID, but prior to COVID, A lot of those artists have come out of our school in Brooklyn. All of the recording artists that you guys see, from Jay-Z, Madonna, Celine Dion, Beyonce, and all of the artists, we've trained a lot of the artists that work with them, not only artistically, but administratively and business as well. We have been a staple in the community for many, many years. We have very close relationships with all the city council people, borough presidents. We're really looking forward to building a home in this space because of its proximity to the subway as well. So we've been talking with the developers, and we're looking to really create in this area in Prospect Heights. We came out of Fort Greene, Clinton Hills, but obviously we service all of Brooklyn, and we're really looking to possibly being in this space. We have designed plans and talked about what the studio looked like, how we could possibly have a like a black box, like a mini studio in the space as well. So we're really, really excited about the possibility. Dance obviously is our main ingredient, but we also branch into theater and music and so forth. We've been very affordable to the community, below market value. A lot of the artists that have come to our school could not afford the training and the level of expertise of the artists that the mentors that they've worked with. So we want to continue that. We're known in the community, we're a staple in the community, and we're a staple in the cultural and performing arts as well. So we're really, really looking forward to it. I am the founder and the artistic director. Our website is creativeoutlet.org. Please go to our website and you get to see some of our alumni and the different projects that I'm a part of. And we
Thank you
also
so
have
much, Mr. Gaines.
Jamel is fine.
Oh, I'm
Thank
sorry. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Kate is
you had something further?
Yeah, Kate is our co-producer, and she's on the Zoom with us as well.
Thank you, and thank you, Kate, for stopping in. Gib?
Hi, yeah, I'm also a dancer, and I met because he was offering free classes in the park during COVID. And I used to have to, well, before COVID, I'd always train in Manhattan. As a dancer, you don't have a premier dance studio to go to train. You have to go into Manhattan. You have to go to the Upper West Side. It's an hour on the train. There is Mark Morris, but Jamel has done wonders for the African American community and the diverse community. And, Harlem has dance theater, Manhattan has Alvin Ailey, but Brooklyn doesn't really have anything for underserved kids and community members and artists to go to, especially in the African American community. What he has done for the community has been amazing, and that's why I jumped on board to support him become a producer, because he just gives and gives and gives, and the types of artists he produces are unmatched. So to give him a home would be unbelievable. He was working out of rented spaces, out of schools, out of church basements, whatever he could put together, but to have a space would be unbelievable for the organization and for the community. So we really hope to have a home base in this space.
We definitely see your passion. Thank you so much. We just have to move the meeting along. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gib? Okay.
Thanks, Ms. Weatherspoon. I have a couple of questions. Part of the presentation we heard addressed the interaction between the applicants and the Department of City Planning with respect to how the space was going to be used. I'm interested to know, when did the applicants first meet with the Department of City Planning regarding developing this site?
Good question. Steph, you're involved.
I mean, it was years ago, honestly. I know our involvement began in 2018, I believe.
And what did we show up to City Planning presenting?
I think we showed up presenting something larger than what we have now, and City Planning counseled us to.
Not
right. They wanted us to do a nice step down from the buildings to the west.
Let's see if we can get more specific about when you met with the Department of City Planning. The applicants closed on the ground lease in November of 2017. when do you think the first meeting with the Department of City Planning took place?
I honestly can't remember right now. I'd have to check my calendar. I mean,
Years.
You think it might have been in 2018, it sounds like.
my involvement began, so I can't speak to a meeting that.
Okay, because the map that you show in your presentation was actually produced in February of 2018. That map happens to have an outline of your lot that takes in not only lot 1, but those two other lots, 9 and 10, right next to it there on block 1122. And it's a little bit, it does seem to suggest to me that the meeting that the applicants had with city planning probably predated the time that map was presented to the community board.
No, Gib, that's not true. We met with him afterwards. I think it was towards the summer of 2018.
Well, I'd really be interested to know why they happened to draw the exact same outline over multiple lots on their map, the exact same outline that is proposed in your application. Because to me, that looks like there was communication before we ever saw that M-Crown map.
There aren't any dimensions on the M-Crown framework map, and
if you pull it up, I think you'll notice the shape of the outline is exactly the same as your rezoning proposal.
Well, our site is a square, or pretty close to a square, so it looks like a square.
This is the operant word. It's exactly the same shape. It has the bulb out for those two lots 9 and 10 on block 1122.
I don't think that's true, but we'll pull it up so we can take a look. Steph, you better doing this stuff.
Yeah, also our lot is an assemblage of multiple leases. So
yeah, I know, I understand.
There was one piece that was completed in 2017, but subsequent leases were signed in 2018. Well, after the release. So
okay, so and I'm also interested in who are all of the principals involved in Vanderbilt Atlantic Holdings, and what have they built before as a team?
Officer of Vanderbilt Atlantic Holdings, also part of SPR Group LLC as a sponsor for Vanderbilt Atlantic Holdings. I've been in the real estate business for approximately 12 years, and in my previous firm, I've been involved in probably a dozen or so developments in Manhattan, in Queens, and we had a project in Brooklyn as well.
Right, but as a team, what is this team developed before this project?
I think we carry our personal experience, from what we've done before, and
okay, fair enough. But but Tom, besides yourself, who were the other members of the team?
We have another person in the office, Sam. I think you've met him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
How about Mr. Jashinsky? Is he a member of your team?
He is a passive investor in the LLC.
Okay. It looks like he signed the ground lease for lot 1.
He did. Unfortunately, the way we structured the lease at the time, it was just more convenient for him to kind of execute the lease, but he's not involved in any day-to-day activity.
Okay. Did you folks, the attorneys, did you find that that map? You want me to show it to you? I've got it up on my screen.
Sure, pull it up.
Give me 1 second. This is your presentation. I'm sorry, Ms. Witherspoon, can I share from here? Does that work? Yeah, it looks like it does.
Absolutely.
So this is DCP's map. This is your presentation. Here's the area we're talking about over here, where you see the area that represents sort of lot 1 is an L shape that would come down here into the lots here on the south side of block 1122. And this area that bulbs out appears to be lots 9 and 10. So this was first shown to us in February of 18, which was a couple of months after the deal for the ground lease was done. I'm just showing this to make a point that at least at least a year and a half went by before we ever heard formal word of this project. So this was under consideration, and I have to believe, after seeing this, that your communication with the Department of City Planning must have had some effect on the shape. I mean, there's no way, to Mr. Lee's point, there's no way they could have known that you had planned, or that that these other lots were going to be acquired and brought into this project in February of 2018, unless they had word from the applicants.
David, it looks like you got an answer right in the chat group from the city's planner who is involved in M-Crown. So why don't you read out his answer?
Hang on one second. I've got to get my screen back here. 1 second. Yeah, Joan, I see that. I'm sorry. The optics of it just don't hold for this. I just want to, and it's troubling. It's troubling because we also know that the Department of City Planning is counseling developers who are working on other private applications to propose densities that are greater than the community board has called for in its August 2018 letter with this council member and the borough president. And we've never had that meeting with the Department of City Planning. We've never had a discussion with you where you sat with us, Jonah, and said, here's what we think the correct densities are. All of this, it's disappointing to me personally, but let's get back to the application. We're talking about, we're positioning the community center and the arts center that are going to be a part of this project as a real asset, perhaps something that is justifying in some way part of the additional density. What's the arrangement with the arts center? What's the length of their lease going to be in the site, or is it going to be condoed, and will they actually own the space? Or how do we know that this will actually, that this arrangement of having the performing arts group occupy the building will actually happen after your ULURP is approved?
Tom, you want to respond to that?
In terms of the length, we are looking at a 15-year plus extension. So it'll be a long-term arrangement where they will be able to occupy the space at very below market rent. We're designing a space that's specific for their programming needs. In terms of the obligation, I think we're signing an agreement with, we expect to enter agreement with Creative Outlet to solidify that arrangement.
Okay, so they'll have a 15-year lease, and it's possible that they can extend. But I mean, would you be willing to file a res deck on the property to ensure that that space is always used for an arts facility, for a nonprofit arts facility?
Yeah, I think we will be open to that.
Okay. Now your application is for, and so you do that prospectively and then make it contingent on your zoning being approved.
I'm sorry, before we go too far with this horse trading.
I know it's not horse trading. The reason I'm bringing this up is because we had a very similar situation sometime back with 1010 Pacific Street, where there were commitments that were, I'm sorry, let me just continue. There were commitments that were made for the uses that were going to go into that building. And of course, after the zoning was approved, all of that kind of fell by the wayside. And we did not actually see those uses because the applicants sold the property to somebody else. Now, in this instance,
Mr. Bocconi, Bocconi, we are short on time, and I'm fairly sure that you are aware that I'm aware of what a restrictive declaration can do to benefit us as a community, and Creative Outlets as an arts organization, and the sponsor, Vanderbilt Atlantic Holdings, as an applicant, should we all come into confluence with what's going to help all of us in some way with this. And I thought I was kind of clear earlier that going forward with this, we would want creative outlets to be a beneficiary no matter what happens. And what we want to happen is that that height come down on the proposal. So just to cut to the chase, that
Yeah,
is what that is one of the things we're looking for, is a more reasonable profile for the proposed building. Right now, it's really just too tall and too dense. And so whatever you're throwing out there now, creative outlets should be a beneficiary all the way through, maybe even with free rent. Okay.
Hey, Ethel, can I just ask you a question for a second, Ethel? Thank you. We're actually blessed to have Jonah Rogoff from the Department of City Planning like on this call, which I think is really great thing, and I think we'd love to give Jonah a chance to maybe speak to some of the comments that were said earlier. Jonah, are you still available?
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm still here. I think we're here just to listen. So this is a private application. I think there's some nuance to the pre-certification process. You know, when we first receive interest in rezonings, there's real constraints to our ability to share information until an application is filed. But that being said, we have been very consistent with every single MCRON application as far as asking any development inquiry to meet with the community board and the majority leader. So I think we can, I think, let me take this back. I would definitely hear the issues related to optics, and I could also speak to, our thoughts around Atlantic Avenue. And I guess I should just frame things a little bit more that, the purpose of ULURP is to gather feedback. And so you shouldn't necessarily take a project presented now as exactly what would be approved. And so, but that being said, we do feel that there's a really strong rationale for higher density along Atlantic, and particularly at this site. And that, just to reiterate what I said in the chat, our thinking around this predates any discussions we've had with this team. And in fact, I would say it's really independent of Pacific Park as well. We're planning for the neighborhood, and we're really trying to stick to, core principles of sound land use planning. And I'm happy to kind of reiterate that. I think, as we've presented the framework in the past, we've done that. But again, this is a private application, so it's a little different, but we, hold them to a strong expectation of meeting the framework and, supporting the community's vision. So
let's just acknowledge, though, that the framework looks like it was crafted with this project in mind. I mean, Jonah, I hear what you're saying, but can you explain how you ended up drawing a shape for that extra density at the western end of M Crown that has those two lots 9 and 10 bolted onto it? What would have prompted you to do that?
The framework was not, and I want to repeat this very clearly. This framework was not drafted with this project in mind. When we looked at, the entire M Crown area, there's a lot of unique features of this site. I think, one, it's a corner lot, which generally can absorb more density, just by nature of how a development can be constructed. Vanderbilt Avenue is also 100 feet wide, which is different from other north-south avenues across M Crown. And then when you couple that with Atlantic Avenue, proximity to public transit, and being on, an active thoroughfare, these are just kind of core principles that we applied. And
Okay, I get it, but I didn't hear an answer to my question. I mean, why just those two lots? Why not the next two or three? I don't understand how it could have been drawn exactly the way these applicants are approaching us. But I'm not going to belabor that. I haven't heard an answer to the question. I just want to state that clearly. And I, with all due respect to the Department of City Planning and to the applicants.
Thank you, Gib, and thank you, Mr. Rogoff. I think you have both made your points if everyone is listening carefully. However, I am of the mindset that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do that thing. Okay, you got the two wide streets and you have an abutting neighborhood that's still relatively low density, period, and livable. So just because you can build higher and denser because you have these two wide streets converging doesn't mean you should. So, but if I'm sure there are other questions in the chat. Ms. Weatherspoon, do you want to curate one or two more? And then we
Yes.
can talk about a motion and move on to the next and last item on our agenda for this evening. Thank you, Ms. Weatherspoon.
Sure. Elaine, if you still have a question or comment, please proceed.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
waiting.
Sure, no problem. I've added a lot to the chat, but I just want to say to the developers that I want to reiterate what Ms. Tias just said. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, but more importantly, it seems you keep discussing it as an entree to M Crown. I think it should just be considered it is M Crown, and therefore it's at least 4 stories higher than it should be. And there's no reason to add density to a neighborhood like Prospect Heights that is absolutely swimming in density. We cannot walk on our streets anymore. The amount of traffic, garbage is uncontrollable, and therefore it seems unrealistic to build this building as large, as high, and as dense as you are proposing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Elaine. Peter, please.
I didn't put a question forward, but I would just concur that I think that there is nothing exceptional, and this is just a step taking Gibbs' general point a step back. There's nothing special about this site. This is M Crown. It's a site that is going to set a precedent for the rest of M Crown. It doesn't even have the best public transit in the M Crown map, and I think stepping the scale down significantly would be the way to go, because you're just going to be, in the way that you're building it now, generating more cars and more buses, not using more public transit. And the bottom line is that the city does want to build near transit hubs. You've actually said yourselves that you're going to take a bus to get to the public transit hub that you're referring to. I don't think that's the same thing that they're intending. So I would just recommend stepping it down. I think the community has a very strong consensus on this point.
We understand.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just respond like a little bit there. Like, we just about traffic and about people. We think that the removal of an extremely popular drive-through, which draws a lot of vehicular traffic, and the replacement with a building, a residential building in its place that's adjacent to such a high traffic street, we see us pushing the traffic, any resulting pedestrian foot traffic into that conduit. I kind of disagree that people take buses. I ride the bus. I don't necessarily agree that we can say that the bus is not public transit, and to be able to walk out your front door and be able to hop on a bus, whichever direction you go, east, west, that's traffic that's not filtering down to the southeast, into the balance of the neighborhood. I think I know we were blessed to have Jonah speak, so I'm not going to ask him to come back, but I think that's kind of the vision of what Jonah and the city planners and urban designers were going for, that by putting density on Atlantic, it keeps that associated traffic from that density on Atlantic. And so I kind of bristle at the idea that if there's that this is not a unique site. We really think it is, and we think that it's positioning kind of on the edge, adjacent to these busy streets, is if there's anywhere in the neighborhood that density belongs, it's right here. But we understand that
Okay,
people feel differently.
thank you. We just have two more questions. I just want to ask Alan, do you have a comment or a question that was not represented this evening? Okay, I'm going to move on. Sarah, do you still have your question? Are you do you have a comment or question that you'd like to make at this time?
Oh, I think you got to me.
Excellent. I just want to make sure. Okay. Gib, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I think this is obviously a project that needs a lot of discussion and discussion among the committee members before we can come to a consensus about what recommendation the board should consider. So I'd like to move to table this item until the April land use meeting.
Is there a second for Mr.
Second.
Brownie's motion? Thank you. We'll call the roll. Ms. Lazarus?
Okay.
Okay.
I just had to get it up. Okay. So Princess Ben James is not here tonight, right? Okay. John Buckholtz.
I'm not going to vote on that motion. Thank you.
Princess was there.
Oh. Well, maybe I'll come back to Ms. Ben James. So John Buckholtz, is that an abstention?
That's correct.
Thank you. Robert Callahan?
In favor, I vote aye.
Sorry. Oh, was that a yes?
I vote yes.
Okay. Thank you. Janet Collins?
Yes.
Okay. Nora Daniel?
Yes.
Thank you. James, oh no, sorry, James. Kevin Farley?
Yes.
Thank you. Najani Granville?
Abstain.
Okay. Kathy Islin?
Yes.
Thank you. Hiroshima Jordan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Peter Crashes?
Yes.
Thank you. Me, yes. Sherry Fiora Ortiz?
Yes.
Thank you. Robert Puka? Mr. Puka?
Yes, can you hear me? Yes.
Oh, now I can. Thank you. Adam Sachs?
Yes.
Thank you. Ethel Tias?
Yes.
Thank you. Gib Viconi?
Yes.
Irsa Weatherspoon?
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn?
Yes.
Thank you. Elaine Weinstein?
Yes.
Thank you. And Deborah Young is absent. Okay. So that's 16 yeses and 2 abstentions.
Motion carries, and we will table this item until our next meeting in April, first Thursday in April. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Great turnout.
Next, thank you. Next and last on our agenda for this evening is 1034 to 1040 Atlantic Avenue, development there. I don't know if we have any tracking numbers at this point. Mr. Perriente has been before the Land Use Committee with this presentation twice previously, so he can give us an update on what changes have been made and where the project stands now. Mr. Perriente?
Hi, Ms. Tias, how are you? So first off, we've been in front of the board once. I'm sorry, not twice. And if you recall, last month, last time we presented, we were sort of cut short because we were doing it at the end. And so we were asked to come back. And it sounds, given the time that it is now, that it may happen again. So I apologize in advance for doing this so late. So I guess before I even start, the polite question is it not too late? Like, I don't want to keep people, later than needed. So am I still good to go on?
I think so.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I unmuted myself. Mr. Perriente, you are so kind, and it would probably be better if you came in April.
Okay. Yeah, just to briefly reiterate the point of tonight, and then I guess we can continue on in April. What we did at the last presentation was try to get the community board involved into what we end up putting at the base of our building as sort of the anchor of the building, which we were envisioning to be a youth center. And to repeat your joke, yes, to every developer, his site is unique and his site is the best, right? It's just the nature of the beast. But we were envisioning indeed to have, a 15,000 square foot community facility at the ground of the building. We talked about the legal mechanism to ensure that it stays zoned for that particular use. Thanks to our previous work together, we've come up with the legal tools and remedies to make sure that we abide by that. So I think hopefully we're past those questions about how to make sure that we build what we are presenting. So really the whole point of doing this presentation now or at the next hearing is to take into consideration the comments before finalizing the overall presentation. And I can do it next month, but I wanted to clarify our zoning proposal and zoning district that we were proposing, but do you want me to even start, or should I just table it for next time?
Table it.
Okay, no problem. Fair enough. So we'll table it for next time.
Thank you for your abeyance. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, so are there any announcements? Anyone wants to make any elected reps want to make any announcements? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to close the meeting.
I move to close.
Meeting is closed. We'll resume next month, first Thursday, April, whatever the date is. Thank you all for coming.
Enjoy your
Good night. Thank you, Ethel.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.